Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Kano Tryharding Modern. Now, something interesting. This deck is Hammertime, which is a deck that we used to play on Mad Meta Magic. We played a Boros version, and back when I was playing that deck, I think I 5-0'd with it about 6 or 7 times, like right in a row. And there was like another 4-1 in there somewhere too. And that was one of the decks I was playing outside of actually recording content for this channel, and the deck was good. I told my whole Discord this deck is great. And right now it's become the number 2 meta deck. So we've kind of come a long way. But instead of Boros, we're running Orzhov, basically for access to hand hate. And I mean, like, other than that, what's to say? The whole plan is to take an Ornithopter or a Memnite or an Inkmoth Nexus, stick 1 to 3 Colossus Hammers on it, and kill your opponent. The backup plan is like Cranial Plating for kind of like an artifact aggro thing. We're using Pure Steel Paladin as our method of equipping, along with Sigardizade. So no Core Outfitter, no Magnetic Theft, Sigardizade, Pure Steel Paladin. That's what we're doing. Out of the sideboard, we have Auriok Champion, Burnt and Forged Tenders versus Burn. We have Disenchants versus other, I guess, this deck. Some Inquisitions, a Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, a little bit of Grave Hate in the form of Nile Spellbomb and Pithing Needle, because Pithing Needle is pretty great versus a lot of decks. So, I don't really see a reason to ramble about this too much. I think most people who've seen this deck kind of understand what it is and what it does. Let's take it into a competitive league. Alrighty, round 1, here we go. I would like to play first. We will reveal Luris. Well, kind of looks like we have the combo, so we're gonna keep. The only problem is we don't have double white for Pure Steel right away, but I don't actually think that's too much of a problem. So we're gonna start Inkmoth Nexus, Shadow Spear, and I'm gonna play out Paradise Mantle. Pass the turn. Next turn, we can Stoneforge Mystic for a Colossus Hammer. So our opponent is on some sort of Blitz deck. So play Stoneforge, go and get a Colossus Hammer, pass the turn. If my opponent doesn't leave up Burn, we can just play Pure Steel, stick everything on Stoneforge, gain up to 30 life, and then just, you know, what's your opponent gonna do? He's gonna have a bad time. Because Shadow Spear gives trample. Alright, we untap. We draw Sigardizade. Does that kill my opponent? That almost kills my opponent. If I had had that on turn 1, my opponent would be dead. But, alright, Marsh Flats. Fetch up a Plains. Play Pure Steel. Play Hammer. Always yes, always yield. Draw a card. I forgot that there's more text on Pure Steel. The card's great. I actually could have killed my opponent had I equipped, I think I forgot about the Paradise Mantle equipping for free. Alright, go to combat, attack for 12, lifelink, and trample. What are you going to do about that? Nothing. You got nothing. Man. Okay, so versus Blitz, we bring in Burnt and Forge Tender, Auriok Champion. We could bring in Fatal Push here. Actually, probably Fatal Push Inquisition is better than the Thoughtseizes. Probably 2 Fatal Push, 1 Inquisition. We don't need Disenchant in this matchup. And if I'm bringing in Auriok Champion and Forge Tenders, what am I taking out of the deck? That's a good question. I can't really cut too many artifacts. There's not that many flex slots in the deck. I don't really want to go down many tutors either. Maybe we just cut the Fatal Pushes in the Inquisition entirely. Yeah, I think this looks fine. Let's try this. Reveal Luris. Almost. This hand is so close to good. If we could get a land. Oh, if only we could get a land. Should I keep the manaless hand? We'll have like 3 redraws to get to a land. We play 20 land. Oh man. We just need a plains. I think I'm going to do it. We're keeping a hand without mana. So opponent starts Swift Spear. We untap, we draw Stoneforge Mystic. Play Bauble. Bauble. I mean, I guess I could bauble my opponent. We're going to see whatever we draw, so. Then I'm going to play out Paradise Mantle, Ornithopter, Memnite. Bringing back some Affinity vibes. No mana. We draw Steel Shaper's Gift. Come on, Plains. We just need a Plains. Alright, second Swift Spear. Opponent goes to combat and attacks. No blocks, of course. Opponent hits us for 2. Light up the stage. The Exile Lightning Bolt Manamorphose. Oh man, the greed got to me. Go to combat, hit our opponent for 1. To be fair, a land is what we are most likely to draw. It's literally a 1 in 3 chance every single draw, and it gets better. So, opponent starts Manamorphose into blue-red. Lightning Bolt's a Thopter. Sure. They go to combat, they attack for 8, we go down to 9. Second main phase, they light up the stage again. We untap. There's the Plains, but is it too late? So we equip to Ornithopter, tap for white. Do we play Sigarda's Aid, or do we play Forge Tender? I think we're kind of all in on comboing right now. So play Sigarda's Aid, pass the turn, leave Memnite back to block, because he very well might have to. A land would be our best draw again. The opponent plays a Steam Vents tapped, so it doesn't look like they have a ton of things to cast this turn. They play Kozilek's Return? Oh, that's brutal. I'm glad that I didn't play out the Forge Tender, though. Nice. Play Forge Tender. Play Colossus Hammer. Suit up the Forge Tender. Oh, man. And then next turn we can go get Shadow Spear. So they have to kill us this turn. They have a Sprite Dragon, and they have a lot of burn in their deck, so it's very possible that they can. But if we win, we won by keeping a hand that had no mana in it. And that's the goal. Opponent fetches 5 mana. Burst Lightning. They didn't kick it. They didn't kick the Burst Lightning. They didn't right-click Cast with Kicker. That would have killed us. As it stands right now, we are 1 Prowess trigger from dead. Well, they had the Abrade. Unfortunate. Opponent was dead next turn. Well, I mean, without the Abrade anyway. Okay, let's keep a reasonable hand. So awful. Alright, I'd love to play first. Reveal Lurrus. Turn 1, Sigarda's Aid. Turn 2, Stoneforge. Yeah, let's do it. So the plan here to start is to play Sigarda's Aid, play Ornithopter. Because what this is going to do is this is going to force my opponent to immediately destroy this Ornithopter. They will waste burn to kill this, because if we had like a hammer or 2 hammers, my opponent just dies. So if they have burn, they have to cast burn here, which means they're not developing their board, and they're giving up valuable burn out of hand, I guess. Valuable creature removal and resources. So play Stoneforge Mystic. We'll go and get the hammer. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a fetch land, gets a mountain. Starts with an opt. Burst Lightning. So they're still not developing their board. Okay, we draw Mishra's Bauble. So play Stoneforge Mystic. Tutor with Stoneforge Mystic. We're going to get another Colossus Hammer. Play Silent Clearing. Play Bauble. And pass the turn. Bauble my opponent on their upkeep. Sprite Dragon. If they don't have a land and they just play Sprite Dragon, we're going to... Yep, nice! Sweet. Alright. That was dope. I'll see you guys in round 2. I cannot believe that this deck is in the metagame right now, and that it's good. Yeah, I'll see you guys in round 2. Alrighty. Round 2, here we go. I don't know why it showed up in the other order. Alright, we'll play first. Reveal Lurrus. Hammer, Paladin. Yeah, seems good. We'll keep. I don't know if we keep Bauble for Metalcraft so that we can equip using Pure Steel, or what the deal is here, actually. But I do think we put the hammer out onto the battlefield. Yeah, I don't think we crack Bauble, actually. We do need to draw another white source. Okay, so first main, play Inkmoth, play hammer, play Bauble. Pass the turn. See what our opponent's on. It would appear to be Oops All spells. We draw Thoughtseize. Play Marsh Flats. Crack Marsh Flats. Get a Godless Shrine. Untapped. Play Stoneforge Mystic. And I'm going to get Paradise Mantle here because I think I'm going to go for the Ink Moth Nexus kill. I could wait to play it until next turn, potentially when I have a Pure Steel Paladin, but we're going to wait. I might have to actually pay to equip it to Stoneforge to play Pure Steel. I shouldn't be F6'd. I do that way too often, because I'm so used to having to try and save time on Moto playing a deck that takes a lot of time. This is a deck I should be able to click through every step of priority without any problems, because we either win fast or lose fast. Opponent is thinking. This could be the Belcher deck that actually wins with like Blood Moon and Char Belcher after like recrossing the paths to stack their whole deck and like Doomsday me. But those of you that don't know what Doomsday is, it's a card that makes you exile most of your deck and then you set 5 or 6 cards back in a pile, and in theory you just like set up 5 cards that win you the game instantly. So your opponent, when they're playing Char Belcher, they play Recross the Paths, and because they're not playing any lands that are lands on the front face of their deck, they get to put their library back in any order, and they just stack their entire deck. Yep, looks like it's Belcher, and they might actually have us dead here. Okay, Blood Moon. Blood Moon slows us down, but it's not the end of the game. Do we crack Bauble? I actually think now we do crack Bauble. Opponent is drawing a Simian Spirit Guide. We untap. We draw a Silent Clearing and a Memnite. So equip Stoneforge. Play any land because it doesn't matter right now. We're going to Thoughtseize our opponent. They've recrossed the paths, Desperate Ritual, Valakut Awakening, and they're drawing Simian Spirit Guide. So we are going to take Recross the Paths from them. I think they actually should have just gone for the win, because they could have absolutely just ritualed into Recross the Path. Oh no, they didn't have green mana. If they did that, they had to wait. Okay, well, we know what our opponent's hand is. Play Memnite. Pass the turn, and if we top deck a Plains, I think my opponent's going to die. So opponent draws Simian Spirit Guide here. They could actually play Simian Spirit Guide as a blocker. I guess maybe without green mana we were supposed to take Valakut Awakening from them, but Recross the Path just, like, means when they cast it we lose the turn after. Valakut Awakening can draw them some number of cards, and that's something they can do immediately, but this just, I think, represents more danger. Alright, we untap. We draw Silent Clearing. Play Silent Clearing. Go to combat. And attack for 2. If we could draw Plains, we would win pretty close to instantly. We might get up to enough mana to equip Colossus Hammer. Depending on what happens, this is going to be kind of a silly game. The only reason I fetched Godless Shrine is because I expected to cast Thoughtseize using my lands. Alright, opponent exiles Simian Spirit Guide. Looks like they're going for Valakut Awakening. So we have no idea what's left in their hand. It may as well be an entirely new hand. It is an entirely new hand. They put everything back. They didn't draw any lands to play. Alright, Plains, please. Okay, that's the opposite of a Plains. We're up to 6 mana. 2 more and we can equip the hammer. Go to combat. Actually, should have done this pre-combat. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Okay, hang on. Float a red. Equip Memnite. Should have done this last turn. Just realized this was a viable option. Equip Pure Steel. Pass the turn. Oh, and I should have put Luris in my hand. Wow, I'm terrible at this game. Oh, if I lose, I deserve it. Opponent Metamorphose. Oh man, are we going to hit them down to 1? We might hit them down to 1 here. So they Metamorphose into red-green. They don't have anything to do with it. We untap and draw Thoughtseize. Hitting them to... Yeah, okay, we're going to Thoughtseize them this turn. Hitting them to 1 and hitting them to 2 should effectively be the same number. I don't think they damage themselves at all. So they have Ironcrag Feet and double Char Belcher. We definitely take Ironcrag Feet here because they were only 1 mana away from killing us. Alright, go to combat. Hit them for 13 and take them to 2. Okay, cool. Thoughtseize won us the game. So this is definitely a Pithing Needle deck. Probably want some number of disenchant. Maybe we don't. Maybe we just try and like speed down our opponent. I think actually Thoughtseize and Inquisition is better here. We just max out on Hand Hate and play Pithing Needles. What does that mean we take out though? Because we don't care about Blood Moon. Not really anyway. It stops our ideal hand, but that's it. Maybe we don't play all the Hand Hate because we're on the draw. Oh, you know what? Pithing Needle actually doesn't help at all because my opponent plays Force of Vigor, and they can answer this with like the Doomsday pile, so we don't actually want that. We want the Hand Hate. I think Cranial Plating is actually going to be too slow, so I'm going to drop Cranial Plating in favor of an Inquisition and a Thoughtseize. We're going to play it like this. We are on the draw. Reveal Lurrus. Yeah, this kind of looks like the hand, so we're going to keep. Unfortunately, we do not have a basic swamp, and hopefully our opponent can't just turn one Blood Moon. Turn one Blood Moon would be very bad for us. In fact, maybe we don't even... Maybe we just fetch a basic Plains. That's probably what we do here. Opponent kept a hand of 7, so we're going to keep a hand of 7. Okay, opponent leads tap land because they usually have to. Let's see what we draw. Another Thoughtseize. Okay, well, the odds that... So we're going to fetch Godless Shrine again. And the reason being is because if I Thoughtseize my opponent and they have a Blood Moon, I can just cast, you know... Let's look at the top card of their deck. Spirit Guide. Alright. Definitely starting Thoughtseize. They have lands, they have Ironcrag Feet. They're drawing Simian Spirit Guide. Okay, we can't keep them off of lands. They can't play Ironcrag Feet next turn, because they would only have a maximum of 3 mana. But if I take Charbelcher from them, they'll cast Valakut Awakening, I think, and try and draw a new hand. Yeah, I'm still going to take Charbelcher from them. I hate that it reveals both the front and the back of these cards. I know that's probably useful for some people, but I wish I had a way to turn that off. We draw Plains, which is perfect. Opponent plays Valakut Stoneforge. We untap. We draw a second Colossus Hammer. So if we draw an untapped land next turn, we just win. We know what their hand is. It's these 5 cards. We can't stop them from casting Ironcrag Feet, so if they draw... Well, I mean, we could Thoughtseize Simian Spirit Guide. That would stop them from casting Ironcrag Feet. But I think the play is to play a creature here. The odds that they top deck a Charbelcher exactly next turn is kind of low. I don't think we need a third Colossus Hammer. I guess I'll take a Paradise Mantle. There's some chance that that matters. So, then we have it on board in case we get Blood Mooned. So opponent is now holding 1 unknown card. Okay, they play Seagate Restoration, tapped. We untap and draw. Plains, game over. Play Sigarda's Aid. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Throw in a hammer. Suit it up. Throw in a hammer. Kill our opponent. Ah, yes, the old dual wielding. Nice! Alright. I'll see you guys in round 3. Alrighty, round 3, here we go. Deck's good. I'm surprised, because this used to be just kind of like, haha, mad meta. It's, you know, it's a fun deck to play. It can win because it's fast, and no, it's actually good. So this is the turn 3. The turn 3 kill, actually. We're going to keep. We do get completely wrecked by Thoughtseize, but we have redundant Sigarda's Aids, and that's the hardest card to get into our hand. And we have the most tutors for another hammer. So turn 1 Thoughtseize can take a hammer and take us off of the combo, but in theory, that's the easiest to recover from. My opponent mulliganed to 5, so hopefully we have an easy time here. They fetch up a basic forest into an Elvish Reclaimer, so this is probably that green-white Titan deck. Play Snow-Covered Plains, play Sigarda's Aid, double Ornithopter. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Radiant Fountain, gaining 2 life. We untap. We draw Stoneforge Mystic. Play Inkmoth Nexus. Play Stoneforge Mystic. Get a hammer. And my opponent should be dead next turn, provided I remember how to actually step through this combo correctly. But it sacks Radiant Fountain, probably gets a Flagstones, because they have a desperate need to ramp. I should have swung 0 just to send a message, but I didn't. Opponent plays a Sacred Foundry tapped. So they probably are not holding Path. If they were holding Path, they would have shocked, so they had Reclaimer activation plus, plus Path. Animate Inkmoth, go to combat. Attack. Throw down a hammer. We attacked just to play around Blessed Alliance, which I don't think anyone plays anymore. Definitely was never played in my opponent's deck, but you never know. Could have been some spicy one-off, right? Nice! Oh, this deck is great! It's so good. Alright, game 2. So versus Green-White Titan, I'll bring in a Thoughtseize. I'm going to drop a Cranial Plating. Because there's, I mean, we could play Pithing Needle, but, like, I don't really think there's any reason to adjust too much. Because if we just have, like, the God Hand, there's nothing they can do about it. Just, like, turn 1 Ornithopter, Sigarda's Aid, turn 2 Double Hammer. I would say almost. This hand is reasonable. We're missing a way to equip, though, so we're going to mulligan. Alright. This hand looks pretty good, so we're going to keep it. I'm going to put back Paradise Mantle. I wish I had another 0-drop creature to play on turn 1. Okay, we draw a Snow-Covered Plains. Play a Plains. Play Sigarda's Aid. Play Memnite. Play Bauble. Bauble my opponent. They're drawing a Primeval Titan. They untap, we draw. They pass. Okay, I was going to say they didn't play a land. Interesting. We untap and draw Marsh Flats. So, play Marsh Flats. Crack Marsh Flats. Get a Snow-Covered Plains. Steel Shaper's Gift. Get Colossus Hammer. Go to combat. Attack for 1. Opponent does block. Put in the hammer. Suit it up. Opponent has a path. They have Dismember. Okay. Well. That sucks. Pass the turn. And that's why I wish I had another creature I could have equipped to right away. So play Silent Clearing, because if I had, I could have avoided that whole situation. Play another Sigarda's Aid. Pass the turn. So opponent is going to sack Flagstones here. They get a Sacred Foundry and another Flagstones. Okay, they untap. They explore. They play a Radiant Fountain, they gain life. They play a Cavern, so they're playing Prime Time next turn. It doesn't look like my opponent will be playing Dryad into Prime Time. Okay, we draw Stoneforge Mystic. So, play Silent Clearing. Play Mystic. Go and get another Colossus Hammer. I guess I could get a Shadow Spear and have a higher chance of drawing Colossus Hammer, so I'm going to do that. One can make the argument that maybe you should be getting the other hammer because you don't currently have a way to stick one on Stoneforge Mystic. I would make the argument that I have so many tutors for Colossus Hammer, and I guess I could also have tutored for Shadow Spear, but I'm doing it this way. Opponent gets Castle Garenbrig and a Plains. They untap. So here comes the Primeval Titan. Right? Yep, there he is. So Primeval Titan probably going to get Field of the Dead. Field of the Dead. Field of the Dead, Selesnya Sanctuary. Okay. They pick up a Radiant Fountain. Make 2 zombies. Then they replay Radiant Fountain, gaining life, making another zombie. Okay. So, flash in Shadow Spear. I am going to equip it. We untap. We draw Inkmoth Nexus. So, I'm going to sack Silent Clearing to draw Steel Shaper's Gift. if I put +10/+10, it makes Stoneforge Mystic a 12/13. It's not enough to kill my opponent. I think I still have to do it anyway. So Steel Shaper's Gift, get another Colossus Hammer. I'm going to go ahead and do this now under penalty of another Dismember. But if my opponent doesn't have another Dismember, we at the very least... They have a second Dismember, okay. Generally, my opponent plays Path. The Green-White Titan deck plays Path, and they only had colorless mana untapped here, which is why we did this. So, we're going to concede because we can't come back from that, unfortunately. And, getting a barrage of text messages right now. Yeah, we don't really have a way to get around Dismember as far as I know, other than more hand hate, but we'll play first. Reveal Luris. Our last hand was very fragile anyway to removal. I am going to keep this. It's a little unfortunate that we don't have double white for Pure Steel. We do have Sigarda's Aid and we do have Inkmoth Nexus, so I think this is fine to keep. We're probably not going to need Pure Steel here, provided, of course, that you know, we can stick a hammer on Inkmoth. We're going to need one more mana for that. So we're going to crack Bauble early. We see our opponent is drawing a Forest. So between Bauble and Thoughtseize, you can get perfect information for one turn. So opponent kept a hand with Path, Elvish Reclaimer, and Explore. I'm going to take Path because in theory, we, with one mana, can actually just kill our opponent. And I might have to do it with Ornithopter, we'll see. So opponent starts Forest, Elvish Reclaimer. We know they're holding these 5 cards. We draw another Sigarda's Aid. So play Inkmoth, play Sigarda's Aid, play Ornithopter, and we're going to go for the 2-turn kill, and the only reason that we're doing this, and we're not doing the Inkmoth Nexus plan, is because they, in theory, take the same amount of time, but this one plays around Dismember, and we know our opponent has multiple Dismembers in their deck. So, yeah, we're going to try and play this way. Opponent does not appear to have removal. We draw Snow-Covered Plains, so play the Plains. Go to combat. Attack for 10. Opponent blocks. They sack Flagstones. I would not be surprised to see a Blast Zone here. There's the Blast Zone. So what can we do about a Blast Zone? Not a lot, actually. I am going to play out Pure Steel. I can move the hammer over to Pure Steel. That doesn't kill the Ornithopter because the Ornithopter only has 1 damage marked on it. I think I am going to. It's not like my opponent's going to have a haste creature or something, but equip the hammer to Pure Steel. Pass the turn. Now my opponent has to make the choice between playing a blocker or activating Blast Zone. They do have enough mana, they can just play Windswept Teeth. It looks like they're going to leave up activate Blast Zone here. The fun thing is, if I draw Colossus Hammer, they can die anyway. Because just after Blast Zone goes off, we can stick it to a Inkmoth Nexus. If they're very disciplined, they're going to wait, actually take the damage, then activate Colossus Hammer. But if we draw another Colossus Hammer, they'll still die. Okay, we untap. Draw Plains. Sack Silent Clearing to draw. We get another Pure Steel Paladin. Alright, go to combat. Attack for 12. Opponent, in theory, cracks Blast Zone here. Yeah, looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. They get a basic Forest. They activate Blast Zone. Okay. So, the reason that I didn't swing with Inkmoth is generally 1 Infect doesn't matter in this deck. And I wanted to play Sigarda's Aid this turn, because now, if we draw a hammer, we can stick it on whatever we want at instant speed. If we draw any other equipment, we can play Pure Steel Paladin and then get multiple draws at trying to draw a hammer. Opponent plays Flagstones into Dryad, into Elvish Reclaimer. Okay. They did not have an additional land to play. We draw an Inkmoth Nexus. Play Pure Steel Paladin. Play Inkmoth Nexus. Pass the turn. No attacks, of course. I could have put Luris into my hand. I actually probably should have. I shouldn't have played out the second Pure Steel Paladin, because if I put Luris in my hand there, I could actually play Colossus Hammer out of the grave and kill my opponent. We might be too slow now. I guess it kind of depends on what we draw and what happens. Opponent plays a Field of the Dead and a Radiant Fountain. So next turn they can play Primeval Titan. We untap, we draw Stoneforge Mystic. We're 1 mana from just killing our opponent. Play Stoneforge. Alright, we tutor up Colossus Hammer. My opponent is holding Primeval Titan 1 unknown, so it has to not be a Path or a Dismember here. We get Colossus Hammer, go to combat, attack past the blockers with Ornithopter, throw down the hammer. We do get a couple of draws here, which is nice. Opponent sacks Flagstones in response. They can get up to 7 lands with different names here total. Oh, we're probably still dead to Primeval Titan. I forgot because they have Dryad. They're going to Valakut a Pure Steel. That makes sense, because if we were to draw a second hammer here, we would beat them. Yeah, I threw this game, I think. I don't think the line actually mattered, because my opponent did have the instant speed Dryad play, which the other line did not play around, but... Okay, we hit our opponent for 10, we go to 9. Play Inkmoth, float mana, animate an Inkmoth, equip Pure Steel Paladin to keep it alive, potentially. But my opponent just plays Titan, and we lose. Because my opponent can just get like 3 more Valakuts, basically. They can Elvish Reclaim... They can actually just play Titan, get Valakut Vesuva, have 3 Valakuts, and then activate Reclaimer, and we die. Oh, that's frustrating, but it was very close. I definitely threw this match. I'm not sure exactly how, but I know I could have won. Yep, that's more Valakut damage than we have life, so... Concede. Sad face. See you guys in round 4. Alrighty. Round 4, here we go. Reveal Luris. No way to equip a bunch of Stoneforge Mystics. I think I actually have to mulligan this hand. It's not terrible. This is relatively keepable, but I think definitely on the play, you want to keep a hand that tries to kill your... Or, like, in the first game of a round, you want to try and keep a hand that kills your opponent quickly. My opponent did not reveal Luris, so I'm not expecting a Thoughtseize, so I'm going to mulligan for a slightly faster but more fragile hand if I can. This technically works. I'll keep. I'm going to put back Paradise Mantle and a Colossus Hammer. Kind of hoping to draw a Sigarda's Aid here. Alright, my opponent plays a basic Mountain. We draw a second Ornithopter. Start Silent Clearing, Thoughtseize our opponent. Let's check and see if they're burn. If they're burn, we're going to have a really good game 2 versus them. They are some kind of strange mono-red Karn Prison deck. Well, we're going to take a Braid from them, because that's the only thing they're playing for at least a turn. Play Ornithopter, Ornithopter. And pass the turn. So we'll be fetching up a basic Plains next turn. Man, my beard is like out of control right now. I need to get this trimmed. Opponent plays Zhalfirin Void and Scries. We untap. We draw Sigarda's Aid, which is, I think, if I could have guessed at what would be the absolute best draw for us here, it's that. Fetch up a Plains, play Sigarda's Aid, suit up a Thopter with a Hammer, and the game is over. Alright, so post-sideboard, I'm expecting a lot of red removal spells. So I want to bring in the creatures that have pro-red, and I want to have the Hand Hate. Pithing Needle is something to consider here. We're going to need Paradise Mantle because we kind of need to have access to black mana through a Blood Moon, and we don't have any basic swamps. I think cutting... I don't really want to cut any of the artifact stuff, like just the random 0 drops. So I'm going to cut Cranial Plating here. Even though it's a good, castable, equipable, non-Colossus Hammer plan, which... Oh. I'm not sure what to cut here. My opponent, in theory, is going to speed out a Blood Moon or like a Karn, and if they do that, we're going to be in real trouble. Disenchant doesn't help us versus Karn, and Pithing Needle only sort of does, but we still can't equip in that scenario. We'd have to have Sigarda's Aid. I'm going to cut a Paradise Mantle. I don't want to cut a Paradise Mantle, though. Maybe we just play the 4 Thoughtseizes. I have to cut some amount of creatures, so I'm going to cut a Memnite and I guess another Memnite. I don't want to cut the 0-drops because they're part of some of our best hands, but I think versus my opponent's deck, they just die to everything. So, reveal Lurrus. No basic planes, but we have potential Metalcraft and Pure Steel here. So as long as my opponent doesn't go turn 1 Blood Moon, we're fine. What are the odds of turn 1 Blood Moon? I put it at about 30% that my opponent has Simian Spirit Guide, Ritual, Blood Moon. They're not on the draw. If they were on the draw, it'd be higher because they have Gemstone Caverns. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and play out Burnt and Forge Tender, then play out Pure Steel Paladin, then look at whatever we need to do to get a hammer on a body. Draw Stoneforge Mystic. Start Silent Clearing. Forge Tender. Pass the turn. It's kind of fun that a Braid can get around Forge Tender for us, because a Braid can destroy artifacts and not just deal damage. Alright, opponent plays Maze Mind Tome. We untap. We draw Bauble. So play Silent Clearing. Play Pure Steel. I try to tap, on Moto's interface, I try and tap Silent Clearings and other sack lands like that during actual paying for costs, because that way I don't accidentally sacrifice them. Okay, hit our opponent for 1. We're keeping the Mishra's Bauble, because if my opponent does play a Blood Moon next turn, at the very least, we don't need Inkmoth to get to Metalcraft. This opponent scries on their upkeep. Love Maze Mind Tome. I think that card's excellent. It might be a little slow in the current metagame, but it's definitely a good card. Anger of the Gods. Sack Burnt and Forge Tender. Choose a source. Anger of the Gods. Anger does no damage. We untap. We draw a second Pure Steel. Play Inkmoth. I think I'm going to go with the second Pure Steel over the Stoneforge here, because that gets us the most resources and gives us slight redundancy in the event that my opponent does have a another Anger of the Gods or another big damage spell of some kind. Always yes. Always yield. Yes, use Pure Steel's ability. Okay. Equip Pure Steel, because that's the creature we want to survive. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 13. Still not cracking Bauble, because we might need it around. But we're kind of to the point of the game where Blood Moon doesn't matter as much. My opponent would have to have a 1-mana artifact destruction spell and a Blood Moon. And even then, if we top deck a Plains, they're still dead. Alright. It'll take a long time to decide on that Scry. Alright. My opponent plays a Seasoned Pyromancer. They're making some blockers. That will not save them because we do have an Equipment Tutor in hand. So we can go ahead and get Trample. And that will spell doom for our opponent. Opponent pitches 2 lands. So, alright. Looks like we got him. So we untap. We draw Marsh Flats. So what I'm going to do here is play Marsh Flats. Fetch up a Plains. Steel Shaper's Gift. Shadow Spear. Play Shadow Spear. Draw some cards. We'll use Pure Steel Paladin's ability. Okay. Equip to Pure Steel Paladin. Play Sigarda's Aid. So now if my opponent has, like, a Smelt, I guess, we're playing around Smelt because we can. Nice. This deck is really good. So, see you guys in round 5. And here's round 5. Oh, man. Y'all. I would like to play first. Reveal Lurrus. Opponent also reveals Lurrus. Is this a mirror match? Okay, not quite good enough. It was pretty close though. This hand actually looks pretty good. So we're gonna start turn 1 Sigarda's Aid, double Ornithopter. Turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic, getting a Colossus Hammer, unless we draw a Colossus Hammer. Alright, 1 restart of Moto later, and we're gonna keep. I am gonna put back Pure Steel Paladin. So we start Silent Clearing. Sigarda's Aid, Ornithopter. Problem now is if my opponent does start turn 1 hand hate, we lose Stoneforge Mystic. Ah, it is the mirror match. Opponent fetches up a basic plains and also... Okay, Marsh Flats, crack Marsh Flats, get a plains, Stoneforge Mystic, go get Colossus Hammer, pass the turn, no attacks. Opponent plays Ink Moth, Stoneforge Mystic, Shadow Spear. Opponent may already have a Colossus Hammer. If we draw a second Colossus Hammer here, we beat our opponent. Okay, Thoughtseize might also do it. Let's take a look at what's going on over there. They have Colossus Hammer, they have Shadow Spear. Well, we have to take the Hammer, because otherwise we potentially lose. Play Silent Clearing, go to combat. Attack for 0, they have no flying blockers, so we can guarantee 10 damage this turn. Suiting up the Ornithopter, hitting our opponent for a lot. Now if we draw a Steel Shaper's Gift, another Colossus Hammer, or a... They put Luris in their hand, yeah. Another Colossus Hammer kills our opponent. Steel Shaper's Gift, Shadow Spear. Memnite does not. Sack Silent Clearing, draw a card. It's a Stoneforge Mystic. So, go to combat. Attack for 12. Opponent chumps with Stoneforge. Play Memnite. Pass the turn. If we draw a land now, that beats our opponent as well. Opponent plays Luris. They can now play Colossus Hammer at instant speed, so we do need to block. Opponent goes to combat, no attacks. We untap, draw Snow-Covered Plains, play Stoneforge Mystic. I think we just get another Colossus Hammer and kill our opponent. Nice. Okay, so versus the opposing Colossus Hammer matchup, we want Fatal Push, we want Disenchant. I don't think we want Nile Spellbomb. Pithing Needle on most of their stuff would hurt us too, as awkward as that is. So we perhaps want Inquisitions? We probably don't want them on the draw, though. And we're guaranteed to be on the draw. I'm going to drop a Cranial Plating, and we're going to try it like this. I think our hand was slightly better than our opponent's, and we got a little bit luckier, simply because we had a Thoughtseize at the critical point, so... Yeah, this is pretty close to an ideal hand, provided nothing goes wrong and my opponent doesn't start turn 1 Thoughtseize, so we're going to keep. Thoughtseize doesn't exist. It's not a real card. We took it out of our deck, therefore it doesn't exist. Opponent starts Snow-Covered Plains, Memnite, Springleaf Drum. Oh, interestingly enough, the version that I'm playing does not play Giver of Runes or Springleaf Drum. So play Snow-Covered Plains, play Sigarda's Aid, play Ornithopter, play Bauble, play Paradise Mantle, suit up Ornithopter, pass the turn. Opponent plays their own Ornithopter into a Stoneforge Mystic, and they're out of cards. They get Colossus Hammer. Let's go ahead and take a look at what they're drawing. It's a Bauble. We untap. We draw Cranial Plating and a Plains. Play a Plains. Go to combat. Attack with a Flyer. We have to force them to block with their Flyer. Turn our Flyer into a not Flyer that has 10 power. Oh, they can give it protection. Okay, that's fine. In that case, Steel Shaper's Gift. Get Shadow Spear, so we will be able to swing past the protection. The excess damage will trample over. And if we draw a land, I think my opponent dies. So opponent cracks Bauble immediately. They put Luris into their hand. They pass, we untap, they draw a card. We draw Colossus Hammer, game over. Go to combat. Attack for 11. Opponent blocks and blocks. Order's fine. Doesn't really matter. Second Hammer! Dual-wielding Ornithopter. I like to imagine this tiny little, like, kite is towing... Like, it's just gliding through the air with this massive... there's 2 massive hammers underneath it, and it just, like, glides over and drops them like a bomber. They just, like, crush your opponent. So unless my opponent drew Path to Exile, I think we win. If they drew Path to Exile, I'm going to regret not having a Flayer Husk in this deck. Yeah, that's a weird sentence to have said, too. I agree. But it plays Pure Steel. They play Colossus Hammer. They get to draw a card. They equip Memnite and die. Woo, we 4-1'd! Hammertime, still great. Also, I can't believe it's the number 2 deck in the meta. Behind Uro Omnath. It's just crazy. Let's open some treasure chests. Treasure chest number 1, 10 play points and an Elvish Archdruid. Treasure chest number 2, 25 play points and a Fulminator Mage. I was looking for another one of those. Treasure chest number 3, 5 play points, a Jeweled Lotus Avatar, an Extended Art Legion Angel, and a Voice of All. Interesting. Treasure chest number 4, 5 play points, and Epic Proportions. Interesting. A Sanguine Sacrament, absolute meme card. And treasure chest number 5, final treasure chest, 10 play points, and Wart the Raid Mother. Yeah, I think this deck is great. I actually like this version a lot more than the standard Giver of Runes, kind of slower, grindier version. I think it being faster while also having the disruption of like Thoughtseize is the way to go if you want to play a deck like this. It is a really good deck in the current metagame. I think it's been a really good deck since its inception, just because of the speed at which it can kill. I like this version slightly better than the Boros one, because Magnetic Theft and the Core Duelist, while it does give you more chances at the turn 2 kill, you generally don't need to kill on turn 2 with this deck to be good, and this deck also has plenty of opportunity to kill that quickly, simply because we play 0-drops, so if you just start turn 1 Sigarda's Aid into like a 0-drop or 2, and then if you're holding 2 Colossus Hammers, your opponent dies on turn 2. Of course, if you have the lands to play it. I don't really have a lot of input on the sideboard right now. I think the sideboard's fine. I think this list is pretty close to flawless. The only thing that was, I guess, slightly awkward is it's slightly more glass cannon than the Giver of Runes build, which means if your opponent has multiple pieces of single target removal that are instant speed, they can in fact snipe your creatures before you can get equipment onto them. Path to Exile is a big problem. Dismember isn't as big of a problem, because sometimes you're going to have the situation where your opponent's going to have a Dismember, you're going to have multiple pieces of equipment. That equipment can actually save the creature you're trying to stick all of it onto. So like if you have multiple Colossus Hammers, you can respond to the Dismember with another Colossus Hammer, like that kind of situation. Yeah, I think this deck is excellent. I think more people should probably be playing this until Wizards decides that Modern is kind of a silly format and they need to start banning cards. So y'all know, I don't know if I've shared this philosophy with the YouTube part of my viewership, but I have shared it with my Discord several times in the past. The only recourse when the format is silly that you as a player have is to become part of the problem. Yeah. Isn't that dumb? The only recourse to there being a best deck, if Wizards isn't going to ban it, is to start playing the best deck, or an equally stupid deck. So, alright, well I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye! Oh, I forgot, I didn't do my spiel. I got so excited because I've got other things I need to do. If you like this content and you want to see more content like it, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to my channel if you're so inclined, and remember you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. We had an excellent stream this week. I brewed a Helix Pinnacle deck, which has since been undefeated. Yeah, that's right. Wait for the stream VOD, which comes out, I think, shortly after this video. About the time that you're watching this, if you've watched it all the way through, the stream VOD will be up. We also brewed Mono White Fall of Tron, and that was really fun. I'm actually going to... I might do a Mad Meta Magic with that one. It's not super good, but it is a lot of fun. Yeah, so... I don't really have a lot else to say. Thank you all for your viewership. I want you to know that you're all wonderful human beings, and I'm glad to see that the channel's still growing, even though I'm not playing Tron every other video. I still will play some Tron. I will get around to playing it again, just not quite yet. And expect more Need for Greed coming up, not next, but soon. I needed to take a break and record a budget video last time, and just because I didn't have the time constraints to record a Battle of Wits video, because generally those take a lot more time to record due to match length, game lag, etc. So, alright, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!